Hello there. Let us continue solving questions on iteration statements. Right now, we're on the nested loop patterns category. And in this, we have completed the box subcategory where we had solved these 14 questions. Then we had also completed the left aligned right angled triangle subcategory where we had solved these 13 questions. Then we have also completed the left aligned inverted right angle triangle subcategory where we had solved these 5 questions. In this video, we will get started with the center aligned triangle subcategory where we will take up these questions. So let's get started with the first question from the list. So for n equal to 5, this is what we are supposed to print, right? So what is the next step? The next step is something that we have been doing so far, which is drawing a grid around this, which will have certain number of rows and certain number of columns. Then we will number those rows and those columns, and then we'll try to find a relation between the row and the column and what we are supposed to print, right? So let me quickly do that and then continue the discussion. So for n equal to 5, this is what a grid drawn around the pattern that we are trying to print will look like. We will have 5 rows, right? And we will have 9 columns. And this is different from all of the questions that we have solved so far. In the question that we have solved so far, for n equal to 5, we had 5 rows, right? But we had a maximum of 5 columns. I'm saying a maximum of 5 columns because in the box subcategory, we had 5 columns. In the triangle related subcategories, we had columns starting from 1 all the way up to 5, right? But in this case, in the question that we are attempting now, what do we see is for n equal to 5, we have 5 rows, but we have 9 columns. So to understand why that is the case, let us take a look at the pattern that we are printing. And let's get started with the first row. So in the first row, what's happening is we are printing a few spaces, right? Because only if we print a few spaces and then print an asterisk, we'll be able to align the asterisk here, right? Because if we don't do that, if we print an asterisk directly, what's going to happen is the asterisk will sit to the extreme left, right? And that is why I'm saying we are printing a few spaces and then we are printing the asterisk, correct? Similarly, in the second row, we are printing 3 spaces and we are printing 1 asterisk and then we are leaving another space over here before printing another asterisk. Continuing in the third row, what's happening is we're printing 2 spaces, then an asterisk, then leaving a space, then another asterisk, then leaving another space and then printing another asterisk. And this happens in all of the rows that we have, right? Including, of course, the last row where we are not leaving any space before printing the first asterisk. But of course, there are spaces between the asterisk that we are printing, right? So this is why the number of columns is 9 in at max, correct? Because we are leaving spaces between the asterisk. So with this discussed and hopefully clear, let us continue and let's take a look at the pattern and how are we going to solve it. So for that, let's first of all take a look at each row and then find out the number of spaces we are printing and the number of asterisks that we are printing in each row. So in the first row, what's happening is we are printing 4 spaces, right? And then 1 asterisk. So let's note that down over here. First row, 4 spaces, 1 asterisk. In the second row, we're printing 3 spaces, right? And then 2 asterisks separated by a space. So let us note this down this way. We'll say second row, we're printing 3 spaces and we'll just say 2 asterisks. Over here, we will consider it implicit that there has to be a space between 2 asterisks, right? And that's why I'm not noting this down over here. Then continuing in the third row, 2 spaces and 3 asterisks. So third row, 2 spaces, 3 asterisks. Then fourth one, we've got 1 space and 4 asterisks. So fourth row, 1 space, and 4 asterisk. And in the last one, 0 spaces before printing the first asterisk and a total of 5 asterisk, right? So fifth row, we will have 0 spaces and 5 asterisk, right? So with this noted down, let us now take a look at the row number and the number of spaces that we are printing and the number of asterisks that we are printing in that row. And before I do that, let me move this and let me put the value of I over here. So when we talk about the first row, the value of I is 0. Second row, it is 1, then 2, then 3, and then 4, right? So now let us try to relate the value of I with the number of space that we need and the number of asterisks that we need, right? So when I is 0, we need 4 spaces. Let's focus on spaces first. So when I is 0, we need 4 spaces. When I is 1, we need 3. I is 2, we need 2, and so on. So if I quickly note it down over here, this is what we will have. And if you take a look at this, you would notice that when you add I and the number of space that you need, what you are getting is 4, right? 0 plus 4 is 4. Then 1 plus 3 is 4, 2 plus 2, 3 plus 1, and 4 plus 0. All of them are equal to 4, right? And this 4 is not a random number. This 4 is coming from the value of n, which is 5. Because if this was 6, for example, you would have got 5 over here. And I'm not taking that example where n is equal to 6 and drawing all of this in the interest of time, but I would recommend that you do so that you get a clear understanding of what's exactly happening over here, right? So with that said, let's continue and focus our attention to this. Now I said that we have got I plus space, where I is this and S is the number of spaces we will be printing. So if we add them up, we will get 4 if the value of n is 5, right? So this can be written as n minus 1, correct? So can I say that I plus S is equal to n minus 1? We can, right? So what does this tell us about the number of spaces we will print? It tells us that for a given value of n and a given value of I, we will have to print n minus I minus 1 number of space, right? So this holds true for all of the values of I that we have and for the value of n that we will have. So let us substitute n as 5 over here and I as 0, and let's check the value. So if n is 5, which is what we have taken here, and if I is 0, what will we get? We'll get 5 minus 1, which is equal to 4, and that is the number of space that we need, right? Then if I change this 0 to 1, what will we have? We will have 5 minus 1, which is 3. Then if I change this to 2, we will have 5 minus 1, which is 4, minus 2, which is 2. So 2 spaces. Then it will hold for 3 and 4 as well, right? So this tells us that this relation is absolutely correct. So let us note this down somewhere. So far we have figured out the relation between the row number, which starts from 0, and the number of spaces that we will leave in that particular row, right? So once we are done with spaces, what we will have to do is we will have to print asterisk, correct? So let us try to find a relation between the row number and the number of asterisks that we have to print. And for that, let me quickly put that information down over here. So in the first row, we have to print 1 asterisk. So I0, we have to print 1 asterisk. Second row, 2 asterisk. So I1, 2 asterisk. And the same thing holds for rest of the rows as well. So I2, 3 asterisk, I3, 4 asterisk, and I4, 5 asterisk. And if you take a look at this, the relation is pretty simple. It is just I plus 1, right? That is, the number of asterisks that we will be printing in any given row is I plus 1, given that I starts from 0, right? So when I is 0, we will get 1. When I is 1, we will get 2, and so on, right? So if we note that down over here, that is, note down the number of asterisks that we will need to print, this is what we will have. So with this determined, let us now focus our attention to the fact that we will have to leave a space between any two asterisks, right? So for that, let's consider row number 3, for example, right? So in row number 3, what are we printing is this. We have got a few spaces, but let's not consider that because right now we are focused on the spaces between the asterisks. So we're printing 3 asterisks in row number 3, and we have got spaces between those two asterisks, right? So in short, this is what we have. We have got an asterisk and a space, an asterisk and a space, and lastly an asterisk. So to handle this, there are two ways. One is you handle it this way. You print an asterisk and a space, and then you print an asterisk and you print another space, and then you print one more asterisk. The other way is this. You print an asterisk and a space together. So how will this turn out to be is this. Since we are printing 3 asterisks, we will have 3 such asterisk space, right? So now let us compare this with this. So if we take the first approach, we'll get exactly what we need, which is 3 asterisks and 2 spaces between those 3 asterisks, right? But if we go by the second approach, you can see that we are getting 3 asterisks, right? But we're getting 3 spaces instead of 2. And the spaces that we have are between the asterisk and one at the very end, right? So this approach, that is the second one, would have us in a situation where we have got one extra space at the end. But that is not a problem, right? Because if we take a look at the pattern we are printing, if we print this last asterisk and leave a space, it is not going to affect the output in any way, right? The output will look exactly like this, even if we leave an asterisk, sorry, even if we leave a space at the end of the last asterisk, right? So let us go with this approach because this approach is much simple. And I'm saying that because for row number 3, we will have to print 3 asterisks with spaces between them, right? So if we go by this approach, we'll have to handle the spaces, as in we'll have to handle the spaces separately. But if instead of printing just an asterisk and then a space, if we instead go for asterisk space combination, and we print it 3 times, we will get those 3 asterisks that we need. We will also get those 2 spaces that we need between them, and there will be one extra space at the end, which is not at all a problem, right? So this is much simpler. So this is how we will go on printing asterisk and space. So let me quickly note this down as well. All right. So coming back to the pattern that we are supposed to print for n equal to 5, we have figured out the number of space that we need in any row. And then we have also figured out the number of asterisks that we would need in any row. And we have also figured out how to leave spaces between any two asterisks, as in any two asterisks in the same row, right? So with all of this done, let's start writing the pseudocode. Now, for that, let's come to the next page. Let's put n equal to 5. And we know that if n equal to 5, we need a total of 5 rows. And for that, what we can do is we can use a loop. So that loop would start from 0 and it would go till n with an increment of 1, right? So if n is 5, it will go for 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, which is exactly what we need. Now, for each row, we have to print some space and then some asterisk. And we know the number of space that we have to print. So the number of space that we have to print is n minus 1 minus I. So for I equal to 0, we would print a total of 4 spaces. Now to print a total of 4 spaces, what we can do is we can have a loop, and that loop will print one space at a time, which means the loop should run for 4 times, correct? And this number 4 can be obtained from n minus 1 minus I, right? So can we write it this way? Can we say int space count? And we can say n minus 1 minus I, right? That will give us a total number of space that we need. Now to print those spaces, we can have a loop. We can say for j, and we can start it from 0 or 1. If we start it from 0, we will go until less than space count, right? Less than, because space count is 4, so we'll go for 0, 1, 2 and 3. And if we want to go for less than equal to, we would have to start from 1, right? So let's start from 0. Let's go for j less than space count with an increment of 1. And here what are we going to do is print a single space, right? So these spaces will be taken care of, and then in the same line we have to print asterisk. So that is why we will first of all go for system.out.print, and we will let the cursor remain in that line. So what will we do next is we will have another loop for the number of asterisks that we have to print, right? So let's first of all write this statement that would count the number of asterisks we are printing. So it will be I plus 1, right? And because asterisk count is I plus 1, if we start from 0, we'll have to go till less than asterisk count. If we start from 1, we will go till less than equal to. So to maintain consistency across the loop, let's start from 0. We'll say for j equal to 0. And by the way, we can use this j again over here, because this j that we will have will be limited to this loop. Once this loop ends, we can declare another variable with the same name, right? So we'll say for int j equal to 0, for now I'm just writing j equal to 0. We'll say for j equal to 0, j less than asterisk count and j plus plus. And over here, like we had discussed, what are we going to print is, we're going to print an asterisk with a space, right? So this is what we will have, right? Now, once this is done, then we will have to move the cursor to the next line. So we will put an empty println, right? Because once we have printed what we need to print in a given row, we will have to move the cursor to the next line. And that is why at the end of this loop, the second loop inside the outer loop, we will put a println statement, right? So with this, we will be able to solve this question. And with all of this discussed, let us go to IntelliJ and let us write the code for this. So here we have src, let's expand that, then iteration statements, questions, nested loop patterns. And here we will create a new package first of all. We'll name this as center aligned triangle. And let's create a new Java class. Let's call it Q1. And here let's have a public static void main. The first thing I'll do is create a variable, say n, assign 5 to it, and then get started with the loop. So the loop will be this: for int I equal to 0, I less than n, I plus plus. Inside each loop, we will first of all have to print some spaces. And for that, we'll have to calculate the number of space that we have to print, which is this: n minus 1 minus I, right? Then once we have that, we can run a loop. We can say for int j equal to 0, j is less than space count, j plus plus, and we will say system.out.print a space, right? Then we will count the number of asterisks that we need. So int asterisk count, this will be I plus 1. And once we have that, we can say for int j equal to 0, j is less than asterisk count, j plus plus. And we will print an asterisk and a space, right? And once all of these are done, what we will do is we will put an empty println statement over here, right? And if you take a look at these two loops that we have inside the loop that is controlled by variable I, you would see that we have used the same variable, that is j, in both of these loops. And like I said, it is totally okay, because this variable, that is j, which is declared over here in the first loop, will be limited to the first loop. That is, once the control comes out of this loop, that is, let's say over here, this j does not exist anymore. And since this j does not exist anymore, if we create a variable with the same name, it won't throw any errors, right? So with all of this done, let us run the code and let's see what output do we get. And we get the exact same output that we expected, right? This is what we were expecting. So now let us move on to the next question, which is this. So for n equal to 5, this is what we are supposed to print. And the pattern in which it is getting printed is similar to the last one, right? But instead of printing asterisk, we are printing letters of the English alphabet. However, the positions are exactly the same, right? So that means the loop that we have just discussed would work for us. The only thing that we have to do is determine what to print in each row, because over there we were printing asterisk only. Over here we're printing letters of the English alphabet, right? So let us discuss that. So if you take a look, what's happening over here is when I is 0, we are printing A, right? And when I is 1, we are printing B. When I is 2, we are printing C. I is 3, printing D. And I is 4, we are printing E. So if I note that down quickly, this is what we will have, right? Now we know that if we have to print A, we can write this down as A plus 0, right? What will this do is, this will take A, and since we are adding with an integer, which is 0 over here, it will convert this to integer, which will give us 65, because 65 is the ASCII code of A, right? So 65 plus 0 would give us 65. And then we will have to convert this to char to be able to print A, right? So if we do this, we will get A. And why am I doing this instead of just printing A? That is because I want to relate whatever we are printing to the value of I, right? Similarly, over here, if we have B, what we can do is we can say A plus 1, that is the letter next to A, right? This would give us 66, converting to char would give us B. Similarly, this would give us, we would get C with A plus 2. Then this would be A plus 3, and this would be A plus 4. So here A is common in all of these, right? The only thing that's changing is what we are adding with A. And if you take a look, you would notice that what we are adding is ultimately the value of I itself, right? Because when I is 0, we are saying A plus 0, so A plus I. When I is 1, we are saying A plus 1, so A plus I. I2, A plus 2, I3, A plus 3, I4, A plus 4. So this relation will hold, right? So in the same loop, instead of printing an asterisk, what we can do is we can print A plus I and leave a space as well, right? Because like I have said earlier, the pattern in which we are printing is exactly the same. That is the row and the column. In short, the cell in which these are getting printed are the same as the last question. The only thing that's changing is what we are printing. Instead of asterisk, we are printing letters of the English alphabet. So with this done, let us come back to IntelliJ. Let me create a new Java class. Let's call it Q2. And what am I going to do here is grab the main method from Q1 and I'll paste it over here. And this will remain the same. The space count will also remain the same. The loop would also remain the same. And instead of asterisk, let's change this to letters. And what's going to happen is we're going to count the number of times we are printing a letter. So we can call it as letter count, right? And if I put this over here, we're done with this second loop inside the main loop. And the only thing that we will have to do from now is we will have to print A plus I, right? And this has to be printed as a character. And of course, we'll have to leave a space. So with this change done, if I run the code, let's see what do we get. We get A, B, B, C, 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 and so on, which is exactly what we had expected, right? So with this done, let us move on to the next question, which is this. So this is what we are supposed to print. And again, the coordinates in which we are printing are exactly the same as the last one, right? So the only thing that's changing is what we are printing in each row. In the last one, we were printing A in the first row, B in the second row, C in the third row, and so on. But over here, we're printing A in the first row, then A and then B in the second row, A, B, and then C in the third row, and so on, right? So let us try to figure out how do we determine what to print for each of the cell. So for that, let's take a look at this row by row, right? Now in the first row, once we are done printing the spaces and we are on the first iteration of printing some character, we are printing A, right? So in any given row, let's say row number 0, in the first iteration, we are printing A, and we won't have any more iterations because we need to print only one character. In the second row, what would happen is after we are done printing the spaces, we are going to print A with a space in the first iteration, right? So for row with number 1, in the first iteration, we would print A with a space. And in the second iteration, we would be printing B, correct? So we would print B with a space in the second iteration. And something similar would hold for third, fourth, and fifth row as well. In the third row, after we are done printing the spaces, what is going to happen is in the first iteration, we would print A with a space. Second iteration, we would print B with a space. And third iteration, we would print C. And fourth row, same thing. First iteration, print A. Second iteration, print B. Third iteration, print C. And fourth iteration, print D. And for the last row, taking n equal to 5, 1A, 2B, 3C, 4D, and 5E, right? So in any given row, we would iterate for these number of times. That's something we know, right? We're using a loop which has a loop control variable j. It starts from 0 and goes all the way up to the number of times we have to iterate to print some characters, right? So if we relate the iteration number to whatever we are printing, what would we get? In the first iteration, we are printing A all across, right? It holds true for all of the rows. In the second iteration, we are printing B, right? So second iteration, print B. Similarly, third iteration, print C, fourth D, and fifth E, right? And since we are starting from 0, this is what we can relate it as. So if J is 0, print A, J is 1, print B, 2, C, 3, D, and 4, E, right? And this is similar to whatever we had discussed in the last question. The only difference is instead of J, we had I over here, right? So how did we print A, B, C, D, and E was? We went for this A plus I. So here we'll go for A plus J, right? So when J is 0, it will be A plus 0, which is A. When J is 1, we'll go for A plus 1, which is B, and so on, right? So this is the only change that we will have to make in the code that we used to solve the last question, right? So with that discussed, let us come back to IntelliJ, and over here, let's create a new Java class. Let's call it Q3. And let me grab the main method from here and let's paste it here. So these will remain the same. We need to print some number of spaces, right? Then this will also stay. The only thing that will change is what we are printing over here. So we were printing A plus I. Instead of that, we'll print A plus J. So with this change done, if I run the code, this is what we have. We have A, then AB, then ABC, and so on, which is exactly what we needed, right? So with this done, let us move on to the next question. So for n equal to 5, this is what we are supposed to print, right? So let me quickly draw a grid around this and number the rows and number the columns and then continue the discussion. So like the last three questions, for n equal to 5, we will have 5 rows and we will have 9 columns, right? But over here, which is different from the last question, we have got no spaces between what we are printing, right? So if we compare whatever we have discussed over here, for example, we can see that between every character we are printing in the same row, we had a space between them, right? But that is not the case over here. So for n equal to 5, we will need 5 rows, but we will have to determine the number of columns that we need. The good news over here is that we have got some spaces in each row, which is exactly the same as whatever we have discussed so far, right? So the spaces that we have in each row will be taken care of on the basis of whatever we have discussed so far. The only thing that we have to determine is the number of times we'll have to print asterisk in each row, right? So for this, let us relate the row number with the number of asterisks we are printing. So in the first row, when I is 0, we are printing 1 asterisk, right? When I is 1, we are printing 3 asterisks. So in the second row, when I is 1, we are printing 3 asterisks. Third row, we are printing 5 asterisks. So I is 2, print 5 asterisks. Then fourth row, we are printing a total of 7 asterisks, right? So fourth row 7 asterisk, and fifth row we're printing 9 asterisk, correct? So if you take a look at this, and by the way, there's a mistake over here. These should have been 3 and 4 respectively. So if you take a look at I, it is going from 0 to 4, right? But the number of asterisks is starting from 1, and then the next one would be 3, then 5, then 7, then 9. So they are consecutive odd numbers, right? Starting from 1, going all the way up to 9. So let us write it this way, an even number plus 1. So if we do that, we will get this. Now, if you're wondering why did I write this as an even number plus 1, it was because I is going from 0 to 4, right? And these are consecutive odd numbers. So if I write it as even number plus 1, we would be able to retain the value, yes, right? And we would be able to understand the relation between I and the number of asterisks that we are printing. Because these are consecutive odd numbers, when we convert them such that we have an even number plus 1, the even number that we will have will also be consecutive even numbers, right? So now if we relate I with the even number, we can see a clear relation. The even number in each of these cases is just 2 multiplied with the value of I, right? So when I is 0, it is 0. When I is 1, this is 2. I 2, 4, 3, 6, and 4, 8. So can we say that this is 2 multiplied by I plus 1? We can, right? So what does this tell us? This tells us that given that we are on a row number I, which starts from 0 and goes all the way up to n minus 1, the number of asterisks that we would print is this. It is 2I plus 1. So using this relation, we would be able to get this pattern, right? So now, since we know the number of asterisks that we have to print, all that we will have to do is for each row, what we will have to do is we'll have to iterate those many number of times, right? So for example, if we are on the fourth row, I'll have to iterate 9 times. So there are two options, either start from 0 and go all the way up to 8, or start from 1, go all the way up to 9. So let us go for j equal to 0 and go all the way up to 8, right? This would give us 9. To go all the way up to 8, we would have to say j less than 2 multiplied by I plus 1 and j plus plus. And in each of these iterations, all we will have to do is print an asterisk, right? So with this understood, let us come back to IntelliJ. Let's create a new Java class. Let's name this Q4 and let me grab the main method. We'll have to change it, of course, but let's grab and paste over here. Now the space related loop would stay, right? And instead of letters, let's put asterisk over here and let's put asterisk here as well. So the variable name changed. Now it won't be I plus 1 like we have discussed. It is going to be 2 multiplied by I plus 1, right? And to print, what we will have to do is we will have to print just an asterisk, no space after that, right? So with these changes done, if I run the code, this is what we are getting, which is exactly what we had expected, right? So there's one thing that I want to mention, and that is over here I had said we'll go for j less than 2i plus 1, right? But in the code, what am I doing is I'm going for j less than asterisk count. But if you see, asterisk count is just 2i plus 1, right? So we're done with this question. And now moving on to the next question, what do we see is the pattern is similar. That is, we will be printing one character in the first row, three characters in the next row, five characters in the third row, and so on. So the pattern is similar to the previous question. The only thing that's changing is what we are printing in each row. So in the first row, we are printing A, second row, we are printing B, and so on. And this is something that we already know how to handle, right? We have done that in the second question that we have solved, right? So over here, we related I with what we are printing as A plus I, which is exactly what we would have to do over here, correct? So with this clear, if I come back to IntelliJ and quickly create a new Java class, what would I have to do next is I would have to copy the main method from Q4 first. And what I would have to do next is change the variable asterisk count and the comment asterisk to, let's say, letter, right? And instead of printing an asterisk, what we would do is we would print A plus I, and this would have to be converted to a char. So with these changes done, if I run the code, we are getting this as the output, which does not look right. So let's take a look at what we are printing over here. And what's happening over here is what we have done is instead of typecasting A plus I, we have typecasted only A. And that is why you can see that this char is grayed out because it is redundant. And that is what the message would say, that casting A to char is redundant. So what we should have done instead is we should have taken this. Let me clear this up a little bit. We should have taken this and we should have typecasted this entirely. That is A plus I to char. And with this change done, if I run the code now, we will get this printed, which is what we wanted, right? So with this done, let us move on to the next question, which is this. And here as well, the pattern is similar to the last one. So we are printing one character in the first row, three in the second row, and so on. So this means that we can use the exact loop that we did in the last question. Now, the only thing that is changing is instead of printing A in the first row and B in the second row, what we are doing is we're printing A, then ABC, and then ABCDE, and so on. This, by the way, should have been E, my bad. And then ABCDEFG, and so on for all of the rows, right? And this is something we know how to handle because we have done something similar in the third question. Over here, what did we do was we related J with what we are supposed to print, right? And that is exactly what we would do for the second last question as well. So let us come back to IntelliJ. Let us create a new Java class. Let's call it Q6. Let's grab the main method from Q5 and let us paste it here. The only change that we would need is this. We would say A plus J, right? So with this change done, if I run the code, this is what we have, which is what we expected. So with this, we're done with the second last question from the list. And now moving on to the last question from the list, this is what we're supposed to print. So this is what we are supposed to print when n equal to 5, right? And the pattern is similar to the last question, as in we have got a few spaces at the beginning of each row, and then we are printing a few characters, right? So handling the spaces at the beginning of each row is something that we already know. And how do we do that is we do that with the help of a loop. So we say this, right? This is how we handle space. And then what we had done so far was we had counted the number of letters that we would have to print. And we had realized that it is just 2 multiplied by I plus 1. right? So that's exactly what we're going to do here as well. So what we will say is, we will say this, right? This time I'm saying char count because we have got numbers and asterisk, and that's why I'm saying char and not number or something. So int char count will be this, and then we would iterate the inner loop for char count number of times, right? Now let us discuss further, as in let us see that for each row and for each value of j, what are we supposed to print and how are we supposed to determine what to print. So from this, what do we know is for each value of I, we would have certain value of char count, right? So let us quickly put that down over here. Now, if you take a look at the second loop over here, that is second inner loop, you would see that we are iterating from 0 all the way up to char count, right? Which means these are the values of j that we would have in the second inner loop, right? For each value of I. So now let us relate these values of j to whatever we are printing, and let's try to determine a relation between them, right? So for that, if we come back to the pattern itself, for I0, we would have only one value of j, which is 0. So let me put that down over here, right? Then for I1, you would have three values, 0, 1, and 2. So 0, 1, and 2. At 0, we are supposed to print 1. At 1, we are supposed to print an asterisk. And at 2, we are supposed to print 2. Similarly, for I2, we would go from 0 all the way up to 4. So 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then for I3, from 0 to 6, and for this 0 to 8. So this is what we will have, right? Now take a look at this and tell me if you observe something. Well, for the values of j, which is even, we are printing a number over there, right? And this is applicable to all of this. See? So for all of the values of j that are even, 0 or maybe 2 or 4 or 6 or 8 or these values, we're printing a number there. And for all of the values of j, which is odd, we are printing an asterisk, right? So this would give us a clear distinction between when to print asterisk and when to print a number, right? So this is clear. So what we can do is, coming back to this loop, we can say if j mod 2 equal to 0, we're supposed to print numbers. Otherwise, what are we supposed to do is, we are supposed to print an asterisk, right? So let us now figure this out. So I said that when the values of j are even, we're printing a number. So let us try to relate the value of j with whatever we are printing to be able to determine what should we print in that particular position, right? So for that, let me clear all of this quickly. So this is what we are printing for each value of I and each value of j, right? And when I say each value of j, I'm talking about the second inner loop that we have, because the first one will just take care of printing the spaces, right? So when I is 0, j is 0, we are printing 1. When I is 1, j is 0, we are printing 1. When j is 2, we are printing 2, right? Then when I is 2 and j is 0, we are printing 1. J2, we are printing 2. J4, we are printing 3, right? And when I is 3, for J0, printing 1. For 2, 2, 4, 3, 6, 4. And something similar is what we have here, right? So what can we observe is, for J0, we are printing 1 in all of these values of I, that is in all of these rows, right? When j is 2, we are printing 2, right? See here, 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 and here as well. Then when j is 4, we are printing 3. That is something you can see here and here and here. Then similarly, j6, we are printing 4, and j8, we are printing 5, right? So what do we see here is that the values of j are consecutive even numbers, right? And what we are supposed to print for each value of j are consecutive natural numbers. So because the values of j are consecutive even numbers, what if I divide j by 2? What will I get? And I'm doing this so that we get consecutive natural number here as well. So if I divide j by 2, I'll get 0 here, then 1, then 2, 3, and then 4, right? So now if you relate j by 2 with what we are supposed to print, what you will get? When j by 2 is 0, we're supposed to print 1. When j by 2 is 1, we're supposed to print 2. For 2, we're supposed to print 3, and so on. So can we say that what we are supposed to print is just j by 2 plus 1? We can, right? So when j is 0, we're supposed to print 0 plus 1, which is 1. When j is 2, we're supposed to print 1 plus 1, which is 2. For j4, we're supposed to print 3, which is what we will get. For j6, we will get 3 plus 1, 4. For j8, we will get 4 plus 1, 5, right? So now, knowing how to relate j with what we are supposed to print, we can then fill this part of the code, right? All we will have to do is find out j by 2 plus 1, and then we will have to print this. So with this done, we have completed the code that would be required to print this pattern, right? So let us come back to IntelliJ. Let's create a new Java class Q7. Let's grab the main method from Q6 and paste it here. Now we need spaces here, so we'll leave it as it is. Let's change this to character, right? So we'll say character count. Now here, what have we discussed was, we'll have to check if j is an even number or not. So if j is an even number, what are we supposed to print is 1, 2, 3, and so on, right? That is number. But if j is an odd number, what are we supposed to print is an asterisk, right? Now here, how do we determine what to print if j is an even number? For that, we will have to do this. We'll have to divide j by 2 and we'll have to add 1 to it. So with this calculated, all we have to do is print num, right? And this would be system.out.print. So if I run the code now, we get this. Now this pattern looks like we have left spaces after each character, but the pattern that we are printing has no space left after each character. So if we were to do this, what we will have to do is we will have to increase the number of space that we are printing at the beginning of each row, right? Because as you can see over here, the number of spaces that we are printing is 4 in the first row for n equal to 5. But here the number of space that we will have to print is 8, right? Then in the second row it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But here we are printing how many spaces? 1, 2, 3 only, right? So if we have to leave a space after every character, we will have to double the number of space we are printing in each row. And that is pretty simple to achieve, right? All we will have to do is for space count, we'll have to take whatever we have over here, then multiply 2 with it. That will give us more spaces. And then over here, what we can do is leave a space here and here as well. That is after each character that is getting printed. So if I run the code now, this is what we have. The output is properly formatted and is exactly matching what we expected to print, right? So with this, we have completed the last question from the list. And with that, we have come to the end of the video. So I hope that I've been able to teach you something new and useful. If you have any suggestions, feedback, or queries, feel free to put them in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.